In the industry, people watch for trend lines at the end, more so than what is one specific poll telling you is what is the trend telling you. And based on this information, the trend is not good news for Democrats.
What I've noticed, both at the congressional level and some of these statewide polls I've seen here over the last month or 6 weeks, is just overall the environment has improved for Republicans. And that's not to say it's improved specifically for Donald Trump. And I agree with you, Holmes, like Pennsylvania's a perfect example. It's just sort of been in concrete. But like the generic at the top line of the poll, when they ask, these pollsters will ask, are you going to support a Republican or a Democrat in November? Those atmospherics have improved for the Republican Party since Labor Day.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of like a warning sign when about a week or two ago you had some, Democrat operative associated with the Kamala Harris campaign speaking on condition of anonymity, being like, we're still, we're working on the message to close the sale, to get out to voters. And it's like, dude, there are places that ballots have been sent out. Yeah. This is not about trying to figure out what you're going to say. This is about telling people you like the stuff that I already said to you. Now go to the poll.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main
Good Tuesday to all of you. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial. As always, a big week. Listen, we are getting very close, fellas, to the end of this election. A lot going on. I mean, falls to begin with, but yeah, we got some big stuff happening here.
21 days, 3 weeks. We're right there.
Yeah, working hard. My Apple Watch needs a break from monitoring my heart rate.
How is it?
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. But these next 3 weeks are going to be grueling.
It's also the time of year when you mix in a low dose aspirin.
Yeah.
Just because that's what doctors say you should do to avoid a stroke.
Yeah. You just melt it on your tongue, maybe.
In 2014, I got married in 2012. In 2014, I'd moved to Kentucky, and Ashbrook and Duncan played a big role in this. But it was a tough election, and every day was a total battle. And my wife came down to visit me in October, about this time in October, and she walked into the place that I was staying, and I had one of those Costco-sized things of Bear aspirin, right? And nobody buys Bear. If you have a headache, you're gonna take an Advil or something. If you're buying a Bear, it's purposeful,
yeah.
And you are afraid to ask questions, and she just kind of pointed to it and was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Honey, I'm afraid I'm going to have a heart attack." So I take one of these. Every.
Yeah,
but remembered it every election cycle since.
But the part you aren't telling is you were chugging 5 or 6 Diet Dooskies every day.
Yeah, that was my move.
Yeah, so on the other side, you were working that heart pretty hard.
Well, I couldn't work that out, so I had to just bear it.
Yeah, you had to balance
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
It's just there's drugs for the up and drugs for the down, and that was what I was dealing
Hell,
with.
that's a good line. They should sponsor us for when you have to bear it.
When you have to grit and bear it. But look, that's what campaigns are up to these days, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, including here on this very variety program, where I hope over the last couple of weeks you've enjoyed the third day of content. And, look, the JD fishing thing, hard to beat that.
I mean, it was a terrific day. I could not be more thrilled with the response that it's received. Mm-hmm. Such a great video. And the thing is you only got to enjoy a slice of how cool it is to hang out with JD, but you got a great understanding of the kind of guy he is.
It was so good. Democrats did everything they could to try to copy it over the weekend. I know we're going to get to that, but I mean, just seeing them trying to copy the Ruthless Variety Program was a real treat.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and they didn't do it well, which we will cover. But going forward, we'll give you a little idea of what to expect from the Ruthless Variety Program here from now until Election Day. We're going to continue on with our third episode of the week. We're going to launch it Fridays at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Fridays at 8 p.m. It'll carry you through the weekend. It'll be uploadable on YouTube at Friday at 8 p.m., but then throughout the weekend, and you can get it in your audio stream if you're an audio-only listener at any point over the weekend. We're going to give you some polls and predictions. We're going to kind of break down the race specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We like to talk about that top-line stuff, which we'll do in this episode, but we'll get more granular to it, and then there's shenanigans involved.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing that goes out on Friday at 8 p.m. that isn't going to be fun.
Yeah, there's going to be shenanigans involved, you know. And you got to have a sense of humor at this point in an election cycle. Otherwise, you're just bawling, you know. So we do that better than anybody, and you can look forward to that Friday at 8, this Friday at 8. So, fellas, if you're looking at where we start this week, we started with a whole series of media polls that sort of reset the dial in terms of everybody's expectations or where things are at. Now, I've said for years, the media was never meant to have polls. They're a scientific instrument that people in industries, whether you're in marketing or whether you're in politics, you use to detect trend lines over a period of time, and you can kind of like remarket messages based on what the press is just completely thrown out the window, and they're like, well, this is what the vote would be if it was today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's good news and bad news to that. I mean, things get really jumpy in the month of October. And for those of you who are listening who have run campaigns or been a part of campaigns, I know you can tell me that every time you get into the field in the month of October in a highly competitive race, particularly a place where there's multiple competitive races, your responses vary a lot. It's why they do a thing called tracking, which they take a 300 or 250 sample every day for 5 days in the week, and then they start it again the next day. Because if you just jump in and do what they call a brush fire poll, which is a poll every couple of weeks where you take a 500, 600, maybe 700 person sample, and you jump in, it's liable to look entirely different than it did 2 weeks ago, despite no change in the environment whatsoever. It's just a matter of responses. Because people, I mean, look, how many people do you know as you're sitting here listening to this who are like, you know what I want to do Friday night? I'd like to sit down for 35 minutes and talk to a pollster about all my thoughts. I'd like to give them everything I think about issues and whatever. Like, obviously, in this day and age, that's a tough thing to do. I'm not saying all polling is shitty, but that is a factor.
Yeah, but who answers those calls? Hey, my name is Jimmy Schmidlap. I'm at the New York Times, and I'd like to spend the next 45 minutes asking you questions. You know, like nobody actually. I don't know very many people at all, quite frankly, who have ever responded to a poll like that.
Well, they get jumpy, is my point. And you see, like, let's just take Pennsylvania, for example. Pennsylvania, since Kamala Harris has been in the race in mid-July, that thing has been a dogfight within 2 to 3 points on either side, no matter what, no matter how you poll it. There's an enormous amount of media spend. I mean, they could spend hundreds of millions of dollars between the Trump campaign, the Harris campaign, the Senate race there, everything down ticket. Like, everybody's invested. You're getting no shortage of political information. And it's just been inconcrete. Those numbers don't fundamentally move. But then you get a poll in October and it's like, 4 points that have moved in one direction or another. And you're like, well, something definitive has happened. I'm just telling you, in October when you're polling, that's just not the case. It is what it is. Like, we are in an absolute dogfight all the way to the end. This will be decided by less than 80,000 votes over the course of 7 states. It just is true. That's just true. You just have to grapple with that. So if you look at these polls and you're like, oh, this is awesome, or oh, this is horrible, take it for what it's worth. And from somebody who's done this for a long time, like, these things in October get jumpy. And you don't pin your hat onto one set of polls or another, because the truth is that all these states are incredibly close. So we look at what the media has done here with all these polls, and Axios had a write-up on it. Trump tightens the gap with Harris in 3 new national polls. 3 national polls released Sunday depict a tightening presidential race, with former President Trump erasing recent gains from Kamala Harris with just 23 days to go. Harris started to pull away from Trump in several national polls in September, but all 3 polls show a neck-and-neck race nationally. ABC Ipsos poll of likely voters found Harris up 50 to 48, down from a 6-point lead last month. CBS YouGov of likely voters showed Harris up 51-48, down from a 4-point lead in September. An NBC poll found 48-48, a major slide from 49-44 in Harris's favor last month.
And that's a national poll. And anytime you see a Republican neck and neck with a Democrat in a national poll, you know that's very good news for a Republican. And back to something you were saying a minute ago, Josh, in the industry, people watch for trend lines at the end, more so than what is one specific poll telling you is what is the trend telling you. And based on this information, the trend is not good news for Democrats.
It's not good news for Democrats.
Well, what I've noticed, both at the congressional level and some of these statewide polls I've seen here over the last month or 6 weeks, is just overall the environment has improved for Republicans. And that's not to say it's improved specifically for Donald Trump. And I agree with you, Holmes, like Pennsylvania's a perfect example. It's just sort of been in concrete. But like the generic at the top line of the poll, when they ask, these pollsters will ask, you know, are you going to support a Republican or a Democrat in November? Those atmospherics have improved for the Republican Party since Labor Day. And it doesn't really matter what district you're polling or what state you're polling. People just feel better about putting the Republican Party back in charge today than they have at any point over the last year.
Yep.
Which is just sort of surprising to a lot of people, because you would think people would, like, especially if you're watching this, you're like, well, how people have made up their mind and now they're saying they're going to.
Yeah.
But post Labor Day, like, it happens.
Well, and part of it, Smug, that we were talking about in July and August was you have this truncated campaign schedule.
Yep.
Where you're introducing a brand new candidate in the middle of July, and there's going to be some sort of fanfare associated with that, which there was, and then media kid gloves and everything else is through the DNC convention. What we said in August was just get ready for a post-Labor Day environment where somebody's going to have to figure out how to speak on behalf of Kamala Harris, whether it's not her, it could be Tim Walz, whatever. They're going to have to do a little bit of legwork, and that has gone disastrously. And as we predicted back in August, these things kind of come back to earth, and this looks a lot like the kind of national election that we've been used to over the last 15 years.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of like a warning sign when about a week or two ago you had some, Democrat operative associated with the Kamala Harris campaign speaking on condition of anonymity, being like, we're still, we're working on the message to close the sale, to get out to voters. And it's like, dude, there are places that ballots have been sent out. Yeah. This is not about trying to figure out what you're going to say. This is about telling people you like the stuff that I already said to you. Now go to the polls. Yeah, now put that ballot in the mail.
But part of that truncated process with her being swapped in for Biden is the first thing that they had to do was, remind the base that she's not Joe Biden.
Right.
And so, we saw that snapback in the polls. They didn't want Joe. Here's Kamala, and the base was getting excited again. And they kept feeding that going into the convention. To your point, Smug, they sort of forgot the rest of the equation.
That's exactly it.
You know?
And they're now just trying to figure it out.
Well, and again, to Smug's point of like ballots already being out, it's like those people are voting too. The people you still haven't made
You voted
the sale.
today.
I voted today.
Yeah.
I figured after all this talk of early voting, you should probably vote early.
Put a little money where your mouth is.
Yeah, right.
I
mean, it was super, super easy. There wasn't even a line. Thank you, Christopher Columbus for sailing the ocean blue and, coming to America to give us this great holiday. I was actually surprised it was open, but there was no line. I mean, I voted in like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
bang, bang, boom, against all of the ballot initiatives asking for money.
Which is ultimately what matters here. And we've talked a lot about this in terms of early voting and just making a plan to vote and make sure that you get your ballot cast. But the point about the jumpy polls and all of those things are all very real. Like most of what you're watching and hearing about in terms of political news at this point is all just kind of manufactured bullshit. Everybody knows the choice. It's just trying to put a little silver lining on that choice as we get closer and closer for a fewer and fewer amount of Americans who haven't cast a ballot yet. And so now here we are, just several weeks here before the election, and like Kamala Harris is questioning the central thesis of her campaign that she's not Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it becomes more and more problematic for her as we go along. Like, you would think early vote would be as good as it can get for her, because the last 2 weeks have sucked, haven't they?
And I mean, contrast that to what you've been seeing out of President Trump and the Trump campaign, when he's having a rally on the screen that says "Swamp the vote, swamp the vote, go get your ballot in now." The message is they've already gotten the message. Everyone knows where Trump stands. They see the contrast of how the border went to hell, the economy is a mess, no one's feeling good about the way things are going. His message right now is what it should be: get that ballot in the mail.
Yep.
That's it. And the fact that Kamala Harris campaign, not only can she not get a message out, then Joe Biden's going to come out and just cut her off at the knees.
Wait.
Oh, well, just wait.
And
We're
it's-
going to get to that in a second.
And it's a campaign. The Kamala Harris campaign is reeking of desperation
Totally.
right now. I mean, all of the stuff where Obama's trying to shame men into voting for Kamala.
I wanna get to all of this.
You've got them begging for another debate against Donald Trump. You know, you've got her now she's going to do Brett Baier on Fox News.
Yeah.
Like, clearly they know
I
they
wonder
need
if
a
they've ever
massive
watched
shakeup.
Brett interview someone.
Apparently not.
That is probably not my first choice.
not smart.
if I'm them.
Yeah.
I mean, it
But
doesn't
all
really.
these things in concert tell you they know they need to change the strategy if they hope to close the
You
deal.
know, this is the thing is I think her team is so dumb. They're like, let's just do what they did because things are going well for them. They saw our JD video, and they're like, what if we did the same thing
Yeah.
with Walls? Blew up in their face.
Well, I mean, they tried it on no taxes on tips, right?
Yeah.
And then she had that ad about how, actually I want to secure the border, really tough on border security. So, I mean,
And then they saw Trump go on CNN, and he just wrecked Joe Biden. His entire political career ended it. And they're like, maybe if we go to Brett Baier, it'll work for us. This could happen, guys.
Oh, jeez. It's rough stuff. Well, clearly Kamala's momentum is stalling here a bit, and Team Harris is already starting to point fingers. You gentlemen made reference to the Biden issues a little bit. There's other former Democratic presidents who have caused some problems. We're going to get to all of that right after this.
Cyber attacks are on the rise, with corporate megastores falling victim to data breaches that expose your private information. Now these same megastores are lobbying D.C. politicians to pass the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill will leave you even more vulnerable to credit card cyber attacks, while Walmart and Target pocket billions in additional profit. Don't let them get away with it. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
Well, over the last couple of days, we have covered the fact that Joe Biden seems to be less than helpful to the Kamala Harris campaign. Whether it's the Ron DeSantis attack that he was like, oh, no, he's been very helpful, or just a variety of things. Like, he seems to undercut her message at every turn, and it seems intentional at this point. I mean, look, they're not – he's gonzo, no question about it, but he seems more coherent right now.
yeah, what I can't determine if it's purposeful that he's trying to undermine Kamala Harris's campaign,
Right.
or his brain has been addled by dementia to the point where he just wants to knee-jerk defend his administration at the cost of her campaign, right? Like, it has to do that on the hurricane. He has to talk about how their teams are interlocked. We're talking every day. She was critical to all of my success.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell if he's doing it on purpose or not.
Well, if it's purposeful or not, every time he emerges, I can't help but think of that Frankie Valli meme. I don't know if you guys have seen this, where all the background singers are like Sherry Baby, and then Frankie Valli walks out glass-eyed like he's a cadaver.
Smug, is
and he
this
starts
from the
singing
talkies? Is this from the
Yeah.
talkies?
Yeah,
Is this back when you go to a Frankie Valli concert?
Literally,
Ashbrook used to love those.
Literally, if you haven't seen this meme, you need to Google
It's
it,
very
because
good.
it looks exactly like what Joe Biden is doing
What
to
is it,
Democrats.
AARP.com?
Yeah, just
I'll look it up.
Google Great War meme.
Okay.
The ARP blast.
It's very funny. Do yourself a favor and Google this, and when you see Frankie Valli, all you'll think about is Joe Biden screwing everything up for Kamala Harris.
You get an email from Ashbrook, and it's like forward, Frankie Valli.
And then he writes, if you don't send this to 10 friends, you'll die.
It's very funny.
It is very
Google
funny.
it and laugh at the meme, and these guys, you'll know why these guys are behind the times.
I love it. So Axios wrote this up, actually. Tensions rise between Harris and Biden teams as election nears. The relationship between Kamala Harris's team and Joe Biden's White House has been increasingly fraught in the final weeks of Election Day. 10 people familiar with the situation told Axios.
10 is a lot of people.
10
That's
is
a lot.
10 is a lot. Biden's team wants Harris to win the election, but many senior Biden aides remain wounded by the president being pushed out of his reelection bid and are still adjusting to being in a supporting role on the campaign trail.
Imagine supporting Kamala
That's
Harris.
the thing.
Hold on, listen to
You
some of
worked
these.
your entire career for that idiot to be your standard bearer.
Dude, I mean, totally. And listen to a couple of these quotes. Quote, "They're too much in their feelings," unquote. One Harris ally said of the president's team, a sentiment shared by some White House aides. Some on the Harris team say that the White House aides aren't sufficiently coordinating Biden's message in the schedule to align with what's best for the vice president's campaign. Biden gave an impromptu a press conference on Wednesday, at the White House on Friday, just as Harris was about to do an event in Michigan, ensuring that her event would get less TV coverage than it otherwise would have. Earlier in the week, Harris criticized Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for not taking a call on hurricanes, only for Biden to praise DeSantis for being gracious and cooperative.
If Harris loses this campaign, you can see the beginnings of the fist fight that will occur on the Democrat side.
it's
We've
gonna
talked
be
about this on the
so-
show, but Harris v. Biden, Harris v. Tim Walz, all of them will be fist fighting each other for months.
Yeah.
Can I say my theory on this? When you're asking, is we're discussing, is it that he's like not lucid, doesn't know where he is? That this is just like some upside pops. My theory is this fake Uncle Joe facade that he's had his whole life, his whole political career. The true thing that motivates Joe Biden and motivates all the Bidens is greed and malice. Right? I'm being serious.
Yeah, no, you're
The
right.
whole family, all the way down. Dr. Jill, all of them. Hunter, I don't need to tell you that. But with Joe Biden, he sees, think about that line that was just read. Kamala Harris's team is telling Joe Biden and his squad, you need to sufficiently coordinate. Excuse me, Mr. President of the United States, how about you read the talkers?
He's like, coordinate with this.
He's like, I have the nuclear codes. You're telling this moron who says 32, 32 repeatedly when the teleprompter's gone is telling me to coordinate with her talkers. The only thing that will get his focus, and he's lucid. The fog cuts out, and he's like, I hate her so much. And he's thinking even more greed. Like the grift never stops for these people. He's like, I wanted to say on my presidential library the only person who could have defeated Trump in an election. Like he's ready for Kamala to lose to be like, they dragged me out. I bet I could have took that. I bet I could have won that.
And it wasn't like it was Joe Biden's decision to pick a fight with Ron DeSantis over hurricanes. That was just a dumb decision, right? So, why should it be on Joe Biden to go out there and defend something that's not only untrue, but just looks foolish?
Well, on the hurricane thing in particular, one person involved with the Harris campaign told Axios, the White House is lacking someone in the room thinking first and foremost about how things would affect this campaign.
Oh, come on.
I don't doubt that, but also as you have a Cat 5 bearing down in the United States of America, I'm glad that somebody's focused on disaster relief.
Right.
And this explains so much. So much. When you have Kamala Harris sitting down for like a photo shoot with Vanity Fair or going on Call Me Daddy, when you've got Western North Carolina drowning, people losing everything, losing lives.
No, they still don't have water.
And she's like, hold on, people. The first thing you need in mind is what's good for my campaign.
Yeah.
Well, they also have like an administrative function that I find very funny. That if you've done this for a while, you understand that like staffing a White House is actually sort of difficult. You got to go through PPO, Presidential Personnel Office. And there's a bunch of vetting that takes place and a bunch of like security clearances and everything. And sometimes there are some offices that work fairly quickly and some that don't go very quickly. Tensions have played out on the staff level too. Harris's team has been trying to add staff for the vice president's office to handle a bigger workload. It's been frustrated by the White House's pace of getting people detailed for that.
Oh my goodness.
So like inside, they not only have like the headache of Joe Biden being like, whatever the fuck, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Then you also add on to it, they're like, I don't know, we got to process the TPS report before you can hire your staff. And she's entirely beholden from someone who's shit-talking her and then won't allow staff. I mean, hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And let's just keep it going for 3 more weeks.
We're 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every time he looks at her, he's like, call me a racist on stage again.
Do it again.
You thought I would forget?
Do it again. I'm Irish.
On my word as a Biden, I will never forgive you.
I am Irish. I do not forget. I'm going to get shit-faced and badmouth you to everyone. No, I mean, that's kind of what's happening here. But, like, look, he's not alone. And when you see these things happen at the end of a campaign, like, I'm not saying that Trump is coasting to victory here. Like, this is very much a coin flip election. But when you see parties who should be as aligned as they could possibly be at this day and age coming out in press and like kind of shit talking each other, it's never a good sign.
No.
Never a good sign. And you've got like Bill Clinton out there. You know?
Yeah.
Like let's play. Look, Bill Clinton, one of the reasons he was super popular is that he would say the obvious thing despite the like obvious partisan differences. When there's something that's just flat true, you just say it, which is why his approval rating was so well in the 1990s. Well, he's come out now. He's apparently doing some stumping for Kamala Harris. I'm not sure that they're going to re-up on that contract, by the way. So let's get to clip one. Let's look at Bill Clinton here.
You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened.
That's what we're saying.
Thank you, Bill.
What's wild to me is that Democrats haven't figured out how to carry that on. Yeah. You know what I mean? We talked last week about how the Democrats, Kamala Harris, will not criticize that FEMA response in North Carolina. She won't say a single word that, they could have been a little faster. Well, maybe we should hire someone who's a little bit more focused on results-oriented leadership. She won't do anything like that. Bill Clinton, just right there. Maybe they should have fixed the immigration problem and this girl would still be alive. Like
he says it straight up.
But why can't Kamala say that? It's because she is so far left wing that she can't even wrap her mind around being contrarian to this bureaucratic state.
That's 100% right.
They can't. And I'll give the Trump campaign and all the various efforts that are supporting the Trump campaign a lot of credit in ensuring that a crisis at the American border that sort of peaked in terms of its national resonance last spring has become a voting issue here in October. Mm-hmm. Everybody remembers it. It's like 70% of voters see this as a critical issue. Most election cycles, the issue of immigration is resigned to a Republican base that's concerned about it, or border states. And it doesn't affect like the center of the electorate. This is all the way through. Like the Trump campaign has done a really, really good job of driving to the point where you've got Bill Clinton. He's like, I'm going to do some surrogate work here. Yeah, they really should have done something better on that.
Right. If she really was the candidate of change that she claims to be, she would be running for change, some kind of change.
But
and remember last week, she can't even say what she would do differently than Joe Biden. She would be saying that, look, they set me up to be the border czar. I tried, but I ran into walls every single day. You know what we need to do? We need to build a wall. We need to kick the criminals out. Like, she won't do any of that because she wants them to be here.
It's also just not believable. Yeah, it's not believable at this point. I mean, she's been along lock, stock, and barrel for the full plan. And then we are where we are. So if you're voting on that issue, it's a dead letter with Kamala Harris. Like, she's lost that issue. And now you got Bill Clinton trying to be like, well, she doesn't speak for all of us.
I mean, that is the thing.
Wild.
I mean, Ashbrook nailed it. Like, how did she not come up with any answer on this? It's unbelievable.
Truly remarkable. So, listen, we're going to get to all of that. We've also got, look, we're going to talk about the dude stuff. Because as funny as this whole campaign, and we've spent like the last 8 years talking about how both parties are appealing to women and Me Too and all of these other things. You get a woman on the top of the ticket here with Kamala Harris. The only thing that either campaign has talked about over the last 3 weeks is men. And we happen to play a role in that with the J.D. Vance thing in a very authentic way to see like, well, this is a dude. The kind of dude you would invite over for a beer and hang out and watch football games with. They try to do the same thing with Tim Walz. Not good. So we're going to get to all of that right after this.
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal? Reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple. Secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
Kamala Harris is most certainly very concerned about where they stand with men writ large. Just white men, black men, Hispanic men. They got a real problem. Mm-hmm. They're underperforming historical standards on each and every demographic across the board. And so that's why, that was part of the thought with Tim Walz. Part of the thought with, all this stuff that they're doing to try to appear like more masculine than they are.
You remember when he wore a camo hat after the announcement?
Yeah,
The media was like, oh, my God.
Yeah, right. Look
this man, this homespun man from the Midwest, he gets men.
He was a coach.
So he
went to China.
You may or may not have seen this ad by a pro-Kamala group trying to take the next step to provide first-person testimony about real men.
This is the best.
So according to the New York Post, a 90-second video of typical men, quote-unquote, typical men expressing their support for Kamala Harris was widely mocked Friday online, with critics trashing the awkward spot as the cringiest political ad ever seen in an absurd piece of rubbish. The clip features a slew of apparent farmers, car enthusiasts, gym junkies boasting their masculinity as they repeat and insist, I'm a man and I'm man enough. You got to see this thing and then we'll talk about it. Let's go to clip 2, please, Spaghettis.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Oh my God,
Man enough to deadlift 500 and braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't
You eat a
afraid
lot
of
of
bears.
things for
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women. They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Look at that.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books
Look
that
at that
sisters
guy.
like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
It gets better every time you see it. You watch a different character and you just zone in on like, are you kidding me?
I mean, the best for me, and I think it's a little understated. I mean, there's a lot in that ad that's not understated, but like the guy who's got his legs crossed and his hands are on his hip.
This thing.
Like he's the girl in a prom pose talking about I'm man enough. He just doesn't pass the smell test.
On the bed of an F-150.
I mean, come on, dude.
What if your buddy, like you roll up and you're like, hey, what are we doing tonight? And he's like sitting on the bed of the F-150 and he's like, hey, man, what's going on?
It's like
I just want to tell you, tonight let's just talk about women. What do you think about that? You're like, Pat, what the hell just happened to you?
I mean, I thought it was dire when Matt Walsh couldn't get an answer asking Dems, what is a woman? But clearly they don't even know what a man is at this point.
No.
That is, I think to me, the most important takeaway is they are the left in general is so wrapped up in this like weird millennial internet culture thing that they think if they say like, haha, he said the meme, that connects with people to like get a vote. When they're like, I raw dogged a flight, wouldn't recommend it. It's like, dude, we are in 3 weeks left of the campaign.
Yeah.
The message is very simple. It's go vote. Like, why do they have to do this cutesy garbage BS that just puts people off if you're not wrapped up in that same hive?
I'll tell you why. Because they have absolutely no idea what it is to be a Midwestern man in this country. They look at them like zoo animals. They don't understand the even a little bit about what it is that sort of gives them anxiety throughout the day, that gives them a release, whether it's like going out and hunting or fishing or whatever. Like they don't understand that whole world. They don't understand the community, the culture, the idea that like some of these outdoors things or some of these football, for example, it provides a community that people reside in. Like, they don't understand it to the point where they're like, I know. Let's get the gayest guy we can possibly find, sit him sideways, cross his legs on a bed of an F-150 and stare straight down the thing and say, I'm a real man and vote for Kamala Harris. Like, that's what they've got. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's not to say there aren't like all kinds of different dudes out there. Their problem is the way that they view dudes is they just don't get them.
Well, they
just don't understand them. And it's like, I get it. I understand that this is a campaign dilemma for them, but like better part of doing that is try to make your best case on the economy. Try to make your best case on crime. Don't try to be one of us, because you're never going to be one of us. Like, we just see it.
Well, especially if you spent the last decade shitting on every man in this country. I mean, they have done it as a matter of course because they thought that it would help them politically.
Yep.
Like, they attack guys who manspread on, like, I'm sorry, like, if you're not comfortable crossing your legs, like somebody... Like, some people need to sit differently. It's just you're just made differently. It's not our fault.
They can't even acknowledge that. Like, wait a minute.
But I think also it's important to like put this all in the context of the last time a woman ran as a major party nominee for president of the United States, Hillary Clinton. Like in after the 2016 election, like it was written in stone by the media, like she lost because of misogyny. It was misogyny in Russia, right? Like those are the reasons why she lost. And just like men wouldn't see a woman in the chair behind the Resolute desk, and that's the reason why she lost, right? And that the media sort of convinced themselves of that, and so they're trying to run back this playbook of like real men support women, and it's just like it just comes across so fraudulent given the last 8 years of what it's meant to be a man in America.
Well,
I just think it's just so fundamentally false.
But also, like, don't forget Kamala Harris's role in sitting there with Brett Kavanaugh, fully entertaining serial gang rapist discussions and believe all women.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that, you don't get to do a redo on all of that stuff and then be like, no, it's just one of the dudes.
I mean, we're dressing up men as women and having them compete against them. The spokesperson for what used to be America's beer, Bud Light, is a man who pretends to be a little girl.
That's twisted.
So that's the twisted version of masculinity we have in this country thanks to them, thanks to those people. So it's not misogyny that normal men don't want to support Kamala Harris. It's what they've done to the culture of men in the last 8 years in this country.
That's the thing is for 8 years, if you tell men, hey, get out of here, get away, don't talk, it's not your turn, get back, we're done with you people. You can't say, wait, we didn't mean to just come back and vote for us. Mm-hmm. That's not how this works.
Right.
That's not how it works at all. And the fact that, just like Holmes described, the way that they see men as, like, especially in the Midwest, as like zoo animals, that they're like this exotic species. He said the word they talk about carburetors, right?
Yeah, that's it.
They like their
When's
carburetors.
the last time anybody had a carburetor? It'd be nice to have a carburetor in a car. I don't think very many people have those in their cars right now, unless you have an older car.
Yeah. So I want to tell another
story. There's idiots.
I want to tell another story, and I sent this photo. I think I sent it to you, Holmes, and to you, Ashbrook. I was out walking the dog the other day, and I saw this Kamala Harris yard sign in a yard. And I was
in your neighborhood?
I was surprised by it. Yeah, I was surprised by it.
You tear it down?
I wasn't surprised by it because it was a Kamala Harris Tim Walz sign. It was that it was a Madam President sign, but it was like Barbie font, themed. And this is a house where a straight man raises his family. Mm-hmm. Now look, if you are a liberal and you support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, go ahead, put up a sign. But like, it's weird to put that. I'm sorry, it's just weird to be a straight man and have that in your front yard.
They're just not real.
Weird. It's just weird. It's weird.
I hate. Maybe this is going to sound impolitic, but it's just not normal. Like
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if it sounds impolitic. That's weird.
It's just weird. Like you. Some of the most respectful people that I've ever met towards women, the growth of women in careers, have daughters, are interested in women taking over as big a part of this world as they could possibly get their hands on, are the most conservative people I know.
You got one at the end of the table right here.
But the one thing that they don't do, is erase the identity of a woman to begin with, or erase the identity of a man to begin with.
I think that's it, 100%.
And they do understand, because you have to prepare a daughter for the way of life. And you have to understand where different people come from and different people's experiences and how they come about things. And it's like Democrats basically at this point have just resigned themselves to this like weird narrative.
It's so weird.
That all like men are just this evil sort of like scum. That if we could just do away with them altogether, we would love to. But like there is, I guess,
they literally made this say all men are trash.
That's literally if I had to refine it, like what my problem with the sign where it says like Madam President, the Barbie font, and a dude who lives there with his family put that up in his yard and it's like that's normal, is like it's like the shirt that's like the future is female.
Yeah.
And it's like the way that all of this stuff about like how being a woman has been co-opted by the left as like a positive good that only they understand is fake, and it feels condescending.
Yeah.
It feels super condescending.
Well, it doesn't feel condescending. It is condescending. And also, what is the message it takes to little boys? Future is female.
Right.
There's no future for you.
You don't matter.
Right. What is that? And you look at a bunch of statistics now that show that the overwhelming majority of professional spaces, education, everything else is dominated by females, higher paying jobs for females and this and the other. And then you see a bunch of men like sort of leaving the workplace and finding sort of unproductive places within our society as a result of it. Don't think for a second it's not because of what the Democrats have done over the last 6 years that is a direct result of it. They're trying to take away the purpose of it. So then you show up with a dude sitting on the back of the F-150 saying like, I'm man enough to know X, Y, and Z. Fuck you. Like that it just doesn't speak to anything that we ever grew up with.
Exactly.
It eliminates, it's far beyond politics. Like, for me, it has nothing to do with whether you're going to raise taxes or whether you're going to be in war with Ukraine or secure the border or anything else. It's that you constantly devalue the existence of men in society and then turn around when you want their vote and pretend like you're just one of the guys.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I think part of the reason why it's so inauthentic is because of how cynical the Democrat Party has become in the sense of like Duncan was describing as like, oh, they just have these like trite little slogans of the future is female, you know, and like none of that actually, they don't believe any of that, and they certainly don't take any action on any of these things. It's just like a shibboleth to be like, oh, you know what we're all going to say to each other is we're going to say in this house, we believe that no person is like their whole thing has just become wanting to be part of this in-group. And anyone who doesn't agree with the thought police, push them out. You don't want to go to Wine Mom Book Club and not say that in this house we don't believe anyone is illegal. So this like siloing that they've done to themselves is what's led it to the point that they can't even see anyone outside of their in-group. When you have these, you're like, this guy's got a beard. He looks like a dude. We'll have this guy sit in front of a bench and say that he can bench 500 pounds, and then we're gonna have this dude say the word carburetor, because they have no idea how to relate to anyone who isn't part of this tight thought bubble.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's really, I mean, look, is there any person who could appreciate women more than a guy like Ashbrook,
That's what I'm saying.
who is married with 3 daughters, who's a conservative guy?
Great daughters.
But the
Right.
thing,
But like eliminating him from the discussion for 10 years and then trying to show up on a flatbed of an F-150 and look at him and be like, hey, you get it, right?
Right.
You're like,
the thing,
no,
the thing,
I don't get it at all.
Dude, the thing that they fundamentally don't understand, and Smug was getting at this, is that everybody is different. We live in America. Everybody's allowed to be different. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinion, and Democrats 100% fundamentally refuse to accept that.
Yeah.
They're like, half of this country, we think that you're the worst ever, and we don't want to listen to you. We think that you belong in prison. You're so bad.
Yeah.
And it turns out people don't like it. They don't want to be told that they don't matter. This is America. And so I think that the reason why you're seeing a backlash from normie men who are like, yeah, maybe Trump wasn't my favorite, but I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody talking down to me for the rest of my life. I want a fighting chance to just live a normal life.
Or pretend that my sons don't have a future in the society that they envision.
Right.
Which is the biggest thing. Right. I mean, we've talked an awful lot about how daughters who compete in sports, they're getting that taken away by all of a sudden somebody showing up and saying, I'm a woman today.
Right.
We're not talking an awful lot about.
Because their point of view doesn't even matter anymore.
It doesn't.
Their point of view is like, you know what? You're a bigot because you don't want a ball like spiked in your face by some dude.
Right.
So you're a bigot.
Yeah. Right.
If you don't want that.
But we're also not talking about the real psychological damage that it has when you're talking from the White House on down in society. What it does to young boys about feeling inferior to your female counterpart in every single possible way.
Dude, think about the fact that Me Too started with Harvey Weinstein being a horrible human being who did horrible, horrible things.
Right.
And it got to the point where an anonymous woman was writing a 1,000-word essay about just a bad date she had with Aziz Ansari.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like now Aziz Ansari is part of Me Too.
Yeah.
You know, like it got everything. I just say all of these things, you know, the transgendered sports things, the Me Too thing, the Bud Light thing, all to maybe the reasonable Democrats who are listening to this to understand, like, this isn't a thing you fix overnight by putting a guy on a Ford F-150. What you've done to the culture in the last 8 years.
No, you're richly deserving it.
You are richly deserving of this.
But you know what? Bill Clinton stood there in front of people and he said, yeah, if you would have fixed this problem, then Laken Riley wouldn't be dead. It's not a very hard thing to say.
Right.
But somehow an entire administration full of thousands of Democrats is incapable of recognizing that. Why is it that, like, this guy who is like a defrocked former president of the United States is the only Democrat who's willing to say the obvious? Their party has a real problem when it comes to diversity. But they pretend like they're the most diverse thing in the world. They have a real problem.
It's back to the thing Smug said. It's like they have these shibboleths, like you cannot.
Yep.
You cannot say some obvious things in that party, or you get in big trouble.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Well, meanwhile, the thing continues.
Yeah.
It's not just the dudes in the truck and the fat guy and all that stuff. They got to send old Tim Walz to try to replicate what JD did with us last week. So they sent him out to load a shotgun. Let's get to clip 3.
And it never fits quite right. Never fits quite right. Just not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
Oh, come on.
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulders.
It's good gun for trap.
It's a very nice gun.
Yeah.
Can I just say it's like a $2,000 gun. An A400 is a nice gun. The one thing he's right about is it really doesn't kick that bad. You can shoot a 12 gauge all day like you're shooting a 410.
I like that Ashbrook hits Google before he records. That shows he cares, you know? A400.
Hey, Smug. I actually I have one, and it's an idiot-proof gun.
So you got a rich guy gun, huh? We got everyday Ashbrook out here with $2,000 shotguns.
Everyday Ashbrook.
It's an idiot-proof gun. It's not hard to load. It's not
totally,
hard to use.
Not totally idiot-proof as we saw.
But
there's degree of idiots.
What I don't understand is, like, if you're going out to like shoot with 100 people behind you and an MSNBC camera behind you, the first thing in your mind should be safety.
Right.
First thing in every hunter's mind is safety. Why in the world did that guy not make sure that he had everything right before he walked out with 100 people around him?
Or someone could just give him a break action shotgun.
Yep. Well, which is what
option.
People typically, I mean, at least when I went pheasant hunting as a kid, and I don't claim to be a pheasant hunter like each and every season, but when I was a kid, that was a break action. You know, you got a double barrel, you load it manually, and you do your thing. In large part because people around you can see that it's broken when you're walking, because as it turns out, you're walking through a field with grass that's, I don't know, hip high.
Yeah.
There could be something that makes you trip. You certainly don't want to launch your shotgun into the face of old Harry like Dick Cheney.
There was a lot of video of him. And there was one where the camera was pointed straight at him. He was walking back toward the camera, and I'm not kidding. I don't know if you guys saw this. He had his gun like...
Oh, my God.
Oh, just strafing the crowd?
Like, I was... I was like, what
Could you
is this
imagine
guy-
filming that?
How is service not just losing their minds in that
don't know.
situation?
I don't
It
know.
must not have actually been loaded.
No, he was trying to load it because it's a semi-automatic shotgun, and
you put one in the top.
You put one in the chamber, and then you hit the release that puts the bolt
Yeah, you
in to
turn it
chamber
over
it.
and-
But yeah, and then you got to keep the release down to load in the rest of the magazine. And he was having trouble. It's honestly, it is in his defense. It can be tough unless you turn the gun, and he didn't turn the gun. He was trying to do it like this, which looked ridiculous.
Yeah. Also, the first rule of responsible gun ownership is you treat every gun like it's loaded.
It's
Ashbrook.
exactly
That's
right.
Oh, there
Smug.
it is, Smug.
That's exactly
There's
right,
our
Smug.
resident outdoorsman.
And
He chimes
exactly
in
right.
again.
And the best angler.
Yeah, just a solid angler, as we've seen. As we've seen, no question about it. But look, this is what we highlight all of this, not just to like make fun of Tim Walz, because that is kind of funny, but like the lengths that they're going to try to put up some sort of facade.
Well, yeah, because
that like they actually know and do this shit. And like, I don't know, the guy probably hunts, that's fine. But like the Democratic Party does not. That they would not try to outlaw your guns if they had a culture of Second Amendment and ownership within their communities. They don't. We all know that this is a coastal party. We all know that the guy sitting on the back of the pickup with two hands on his knee is exactly what it is that they've come to expect out of masculinity over the last few years. It's not that. So when they try to like do it, it just looks absurd.
Because politics is downstream of culture, but what the Democrats are trying to do is basically speed run like a masculine culture into our politics, and you can't do that with like a photo op in a field with a semi-automatic shotgun you don't know how to load. It just doesn't work. And I mean, like, that should have been obvious to anybody.
I don't know. All I know is that these guys are in tough shape. If they are reliant, if they are convinced, as it appears they are, that they need a certain percentage of men that they are not getting in order to win this election, folks, it's going to be a good November.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good November, because I don't know anybody who buys any of that. You all?
No.
I mean, it feels like they know it too, because it's like one day all of a sudden they're like, "Oh shit, every poll says men hate us." Send Obama to scold them. Send Tim Walz in a field. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
So here's my question. This gets to our question of the day. Our question of the day is this dude push something that anyone in your community will buy? Like, is this push to be like, we're just one of the guys gonna work? And like, your communities. I can tell you from where I grew up, and I can tell in the responses that my boys that I grew up with in my text messaging, it ain't flying in suburban Minneapolis. But like, I don't know. I mean, is that enough to sort of like be like, yeah, they sort of get it, and they're not fans of Trump or whatever? Is that enough? Anyway, that's our question of the day. You guys answer that. We read every single one of them. I'm super excited to hear what you have to say about this one because I'm genuinely pretty curious. We're going to talk about our sponsor for today's program, Z-Biotics, fellas.
One of our favorites.
Oh my gosh, Z-Biotics. So for those of you who didn't watch our convention episodes, basically the only reason they went on was Z-Biotics.
Yeah.
Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink that is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Mm-hmm. And what it attempts to do is limit the effects of the next day.
Yeah.
After you have a good night.
Well, yeah, because when you drink alcohol and it breaks down, it becomes a toxic byproduct in your gut, and the enzymes in Z-Biotics negate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the PhD scientists came out. They
smarter people than us.
They figured out how to deal with anything. All I know is in practice, you take one of these things.
We're avid users.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and that's why we always say there's no tomorrow without Z-Biotics today.
It's true.
It's I mean, look, like you said, it's a byproduct. It's not dehydration that's to blame. There's all the things that we've heard all through the years. There's a byproduct of these things. They figured out how to reverse engineer all of that, and it works. I'm just telling you. I mean, look,
Yeah, so like
you would be done without it.
We've said many times that my liquor cabinet at home, I have like 3 cases of Z-Biotics sitting next to it, so I know like before I pour myself a single bourbon, I will have it because like Duncan said, it's not dehydration or anything. Like we've all tried being like, oh I went hard, I drank, so I'm going to drink 3 glasses of water before I go to sleep, and the next day you still feel terrible. It doesn't do anything, so it's not that, but the proof is in the pudding. Like the reason we were talking to everyone at the convention about it, I was literally handing out bottles.
Yeah, I know. People were so happy
to people at the convention.
We're like salespeople.
Yeah. And people coming back to our setup at the convention being like, thank you.
Yeah. They were like, do you have any more? I was like, no, I gave them all.
Yeah.
Well, you know where to find them. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and feel your best tomorrow. And go to zbiotics.com/ruthless to learn about more and get 15% off your order when you use Ruthless at the checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund the money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/ruthless and use code RUTHLESS at checkout for 15% off. I couldn't be endorsing any product more than we are that one. That is first class. All right, so question from last week was, what is your favorite moment from the Harris Walz Media Blitz? Remember, we had a lot that we highlighted, and it even went beyond that. The couple days after we taped, I mean, it kept getting worse and worse, and so we threw it open to you. Remember, you got to like and subscribe on YouTube in order to get into this category of things, but we read them all, and we always start with a voice.
Okay, so this first comment comes from Brent Temple, and Brent writes, my favorite part of the Harris Walz Media Blitz this week has to be Walz's quote-unquote hunting trip. Not sure if they were trying to compete with JD's fishing trip with the fellas, but it puts a nice little bow on this week of the Harris Walz campaign effort to photo op their way out of improving their polling.
That's a great line.
Yeah. I love
photo
that.
op their way to improve polling.
That's true.
Great.
I mean, that's basically what we just talked about.
Right.
Absolutely nailed it. Great comment. All right, Duncan, what do we got?
This is from Cole Garrett. Hi, survived Milton here, just south of Sarasota. No joke. The DeSantis lineman army is an absolute force to be reckoned with. As for my favorite media blitz moment, I had to rewatch it a few times. When Bill Whitaker was questioning Kamala about immigration, she dodged. And he said, yeah, but the number has quadrupled. It's like she has a hearing disorder where critical questions just don't hit her eardrum. Quite literally, in one ear and out the other. There is no inner cranial mass to intercept the sound waves.
Well done, Cole. Well done, Cole. I love that.
That was great.
Smug, what do we got?
So this comment comes from Scott Mugno. Scott writes, asking listeners what their favorite moment is from the Harris Media Blitz is like asking a parent who their favorite child is in front of the children. They're all my favorites, and I love them all. Could it be Harris's sign language interpreter in the small box in the corner of the screen? I think I can bob and weave, duck and cover, bend, curve, and swerve with the precision and accuracy her responses require. Keep up the great work, fellas. But they do have their work cut out for them.
Oh.
They do. They do. God, our listeners are the best.
Just the best.
Good stuff.
That's so solid. I love it. All right, so we look forward to getting to all your responses to the dude push on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then remember, we get the Friday.
Yeah, don't forget
So-
both.
The Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
We do Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday here in the variety program.
I will tell you, going back to Scott's comment, can you imagine being Kamala's sign language interpreter?
That is
That is a very difficult job.
Because first you're trying to interpret what she said, then you have to interpret what you meant because she'll probably fire you if you didn't save her ass when she says something dumb. And then you have to actually signal it out.
Right.
Like this is 3 jobs.
Imagine if she became president, the job security for Bracket Man.
Oh, Bracket Man would just be the busy. They'd have to have like 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yeah, it would be disastrous. All right, you guys ready for some variety?
Yes.
Always.
So I don't think it is probably lost on any of you who consume social media, but there was a pretty significant situation that happened over the weekend as it relates to Elon Musk and his rockets.
Yes.
Let's play clip 4, Spaghettis.
The rocket is landing.
3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now.
Oh my God.
Just a marvel of engineering.
It really is.
So it's like returning to the tower and then it's like getting caught by these robo arms.
It's the most ridiculous feat of science that I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
So you've seen before these smaller rockets that SpaceX and Elon have worked on, where they send them up, they do, maybe release a satellite or whatever, and they come back down and they land on Earth. This is a massive rocket.
But that in and of itself, I didn't even know was possible until Elon started doing it.
And
Like
that's
the idea that you could return a rocket and land it back on the
Nobody
ground.
even thought of
And
that.
that's what made it a business because, folks who remember when the space shuttle would have a launch, you see the rockets just fly off, they fall into the ocean, that's the end of it. Millions and millions of dollars,
you grew
never
up,
used again.
You grew up assuming that's the best way they can do it.
That's the only way you can do it.
And the thing I loved about it most is that over the last 4-5 years, we have been conditioned to believe that science is just a word that's used to bolster Democrat talking points.
Yeah.
It in no terms other than what Elon Musk has done have you been wowed by science.
Yeah.
And what he has done really just
It's
takes
a
the
wow.
cake.
It is a wow situation. So this rocket is 100 feet taller than the U.S. Capitol dome.
Yeah.
This is a massive thing. Just the first stage shown returning to the tower in this video is 3 times taller than the White House. This rocket is twice as powerful as the Apollo moon rocket.
Wild.
This is a wildly impressive thing. And I saw this tweet from this dude today. I'm apologize, I don't remember the name, but it was Elon is doing something for people that is beyond just, I support Donald Trump and I support free speech and I'll give you a platform to have free speech in this country after it's been so mitigated over the last few years. All of those things are incredibly important pieces of it. But he's also giving people a reason to dream big again.
Yep.
The stuff that you talk to about your parents and grandparents about the 60s, about when you just have absolute shit going on everywhere. But there was always that thing where it was humankind can actually, can do stuff we haven't done, and like reach for the stars. Do and like then it was the moon landing or whatever. We really haven't had a ton of that stuff in our lifetimes, like not a ton of it. I mean, you see like cool planes or whatever. To a certain extent, like Desert Storm. When we were flying stealths for the first time was an element of that. But we really haven't had as a common, like non-warlike thing, a reason to be like, wow, science. Wow. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. The idea that you can land a basic skyscraper from the space all the way down into this like 6-inch column that grabs it is a wild experiment.
And the great thing, if you go back and watch the videos, it's not just landing vertically, which would be just, you have to control the thrust to accommodate for the weight and whatever. The thing is going diagonal.
Yeah.
Into the arms. It's just like so much work goes into perfecting that. Oh. And the alternative is it blows up on the launch pad and every journo gets to be like, see, we told you. Every journo who's like, this dummy Elon, he doesn't. Right there.
I mean, we're 6 months removed from NASA telling us they couldn't bring the astronauts back because their thing that they contracted with Boeing, they were fearful that it was going to blow up upon reentry. And then you see something like that. You're like, no, you know what? We're not limited. Like, we can actually do real stuff if you let real people do real stuff.
And that's what struck me, is because this speaks to America. This country does big things.
Yeah.
We move forward, and so much of, like, the left's agenda is, like, stop using fuel. We should have less farmland. Kind of this whole, like, no, we need to become smaller. Like, you don't see there's any option of where
to the point where
America's
we should
always done is make things bigger and greater.
To the point where we shouldn't have families because people are the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, this gives you a reason to believe again, which I think is exponentially more important than any of the political stuff that he's dealing with.
But they don't believe in the promise of this country. Like that's the problem with liberals.
They hate this country.
It's the reason why we can't celebrate Columbus Day.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's
the Italians really took one on the chin on that one.
Well,
what's the deal with the community?
It's crazy. I'm going to actually defend the Italians. Big week for them.
Yeah, big week for the Italians.
Columbus Day and also Thursday's National Pasta Day.
Is that right?
So hit up Olive Garden.
It's the two holy days of the Italian calendar.
Not a coincidence.
No, but like I'm serious.
This is Holy Week for Italians.
It's like the liberals. Liberals don't believe in the promise of America, so like they can't celebrate Christopher Columbus coming here because that would also then celebrate America being a country that exists here.
Yes.
And they don't believe in the promise of America. They want it to be a small place. To your point, Smug, consume less, be less, do less. They don't dream big anymore. And like that is why, conservatives have the opportunity to recapture the imagination of the American people this November and reelect Donald Trump.
Dude, it's such a good message. That's absolutely right. That's so terrific. All right, so we got one more clipping variety. I think you guys are going to love this. Turns out a man attempted to drive away a massive elk by throwing Starbucks.
My goodness.
We talked about this in the production meeting. I've not seen the video. I hear that there's video.
Yeah, let's see the video on this. Clip 5, please, Spaghetti. Okay, look at that. Look at this thing. Jesus. What is this guy? He's got the yellow jacket on.
Knock it.
Dumbass.
Time to go to work. Yourself.
Guy's just asking to get his ass kicked. Look at this guy.
Dude, why are you walking towards the elk?
What an idiot.
What's that, bro?
Watch out!
Oh my God.
Whoa! The elk, sort of like fake charge. Oh boy, he's putting the horns down.
Why are you squaring up against an elk, dude? That's like 1,000 pounds.
I mean, the yellow jacket is a little...
Did he pull his phone out?
Just go anywhere else, dude.
Here it comes. Ooh.
Oh my God.
Why don't we get the satisfying ending?
Oh, I thought for sure that was going to end in tears.
It's going to be tough. I think this is going to be a tough segment for us because generally we're defenders of people, but the guy's in the wrong.
I was rooting for the
elk
until he
didn't have
didn't
any business
until he didn't kill him, because that's what everybody wanted here.
I mean, so
there's a Darwin Award for a reason.
That's what I was going to say.
It enriches the human gene pool when people like that meet demise between the horns of an elk.
My favorite part
And we're all entertained.
My favorite part is all the people on the sideline just shit-talking the guy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, fucko, get out of the way.
Like, why would you do that? I would do that initially because, maybe this guy isn't very bright and you want to help someone out in a situation. But when he just, keeps going back, and it looked like he pulled out his phone. Is he going to take a photo of the elk hitting? That's when I'd be like, no, you have to stand your ground. Walk closer. It'll fear you.
Smug, he was taping an ad for the Kamala Harris campaign.
Oh, yeah, it's real
where
man.
He throws Starbucks coffee at the elk, and that's
like a real
supposed
man.
to like a real man does.
Is that jacket serious, by the way?
That's the Kamala Harris standard issue.
Yeah, I don't know what that jacket was.
My God, I don't know what he was dealing with. It is a minor miracle if that man lives and breathes today.
It's a shame. It's a shame. We could have had a great video. There's nothing sweeter than seeing people instantly get what they deserve. It just makes you feel so good.
You got to take that elk out before it becomes that kind of a big problem, right?
So impatient. You always have to wait for God to sort them out, but I want it now. The elk will do the job.
I mean, it was a trophy. The guy didn't know what to do with it.
No.
That's the most offensive
He
thing.
threw Starbucks at it.
Good idiot.
Oy.
What an idiot.
What an idiot.
Imagine that thing over your fireplace for generations.
That's what I'm saying.
Your grandchildren would be like, wow, Granddad really knew what he was doing.
Make sure you screwed that thing into the studs. I mean, did you see how big the rack was on
huge,
that thing?
Huge.
Hey. I know you like big racks. So here we are at the end of the show. What a wonderful variety. Listen, fellas, we are working harder than anyone else in show business right now. We're going to do 3 shows a week. Hope you enjoyed today. We've got another one, obviously, Thursday, and then we've got 8 o'clock on Friday night, where it's going to carry you all the way through the weekend. It's going to be happy. We're going to have fun.
Yeah.
We'll give you stuff that you need to know, but we're going to have fun with it. Kind of a happy hour type thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, with all that, remember to like and subscribe. And Smug, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Thank you so much. The names, like Holmes said, like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show, too. And remember, my people in North Carolina, October 16th, early voting begins. Get out there and vote for Trump. So, until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line on the libs. We'll see you Thursday. Stay ruthless.